Good morning, Christ City Church. It's good to see everybody here. Good morning, good morning. Excellent, love it. My name's Matthew. I serve as one of the pastors here at Christ City. Listen, not sure, if you caught it. There's a lot going on in May. Got some things. Got a thing on Wednesday. Got another thing on Saturday. Got some seminars. Some other stuff beyond that. Lock in. Because there's actually quite an amazing summer of ministry that is ahead, and May is just a foretaste of some of that. So if there's any of those announcements that you didn't catch, feel free to catch them on our website. Fill out a connection card, drop it in the basket about any of that, or you can just be like, I missed them. Just tell me again, and then we'll just send you all an email with all of it. Every Friday, a newsletter goes out called The Scoop. Maybe you don't see that, don't know that. That's okay. We do check the open rates. Some of you aren't opening them. That's okay. We're not mad. We noticed, but we're not mad about it. But just be alert to all of the things. There's a whole host of amazing stuff that's happening in the life of Christ City, and love for you to participate in it as much as you're able and as much as you feel led. 2 weeks ago, we started a new sermon series entitled Strengthening the Core, Essential Practices of the Church. And in this series, what we want to do is to explore what Christ City identifies as 3 core practices, 3 anchoring actions, if you will, that shape us as a church. And those practices are worship, community, and mission. In the opening week, we explored worship and our shared definition of worship as our lived response, a response collectively and individually, all of us together and then each of us on our own, a response collectively and individually to God's great love that was displayed in Jesus Christ. And this week, what we want to do is we want to continue to look into our shared practice of community, which we have defined, and this is on our website. You can go there and check it out. I cited it for you in case you didn't want to see. That's right. I want to make sure I cite my work. Our definition of community as participating with others and cultivating a fellowship that offers welcome to all, functions as the body of Christ in the world, and points to the reality of God's kingdom among us now. Now, as we did with the exploration of worship, and as we'll do with mission next week, we wanted to look at each of these practices through a few different lenses. The first being, how do we think about the practice? And then, how do we embody that practice? We've described this approach in our sermon series as similar to that you might sort of think of like a college course that you might take, where you have a lecture and then you have a lab. And you have a lecture and you have a lab. Or sort of reflection and action. Reflection and action. 1 week we'll focus on one of the core practices and seek to lay a biblical and theological foundation for that practice. In the second week, we'll have a panel discussion with a number of folks from Christ City on how they embody this practice in their own lives and in the different spheres of their lives, of work and worship and study or neighboring or parenting or what have you. Last week, we spent time considering the biblical and theological aspects of community, thanks to our guest preacher, Ken Witzma. In an approach that he brought to us was a gift, an approach that was both academic and pastoral. He helped us understand our American context of individualism and how that can and has undermined our value of community and distorted our lived experience of community. And so this morning, we get to hear, this morning is our lab. So we get to hear from it, a praxis. How does this look in the lives of some of our friends here at Christ City? So we're going to hear from 3 panelists from Christ City as they share about worship from their lives and their perspectives. So I want to invite our panelists up. If we can give them a hand as they come on up. Melody, if you'll grab the handheld there. I wrote all of these bios, and I asked them if they wanted to proof them, and they said no. So some of this might not be accurate. In spirit it is, but outside of that it might not be. Melody is an elder here at Christ City Church. Has been a part of this community for 10 years or more. Originally from West Virginia, she's a communications specialist here in D.C. Is married to David Hood in the back. What's up? Whoop, whoop. And together they have 3 children. Drea Ackerman is pastor of community life here at Christ City. She grew up in gorgeous Prince George's County, Maryland. Anybody represent? That's what's up. And after a successful career as a professional photographer, she began pursuing her call to ministry here at Christ City, and has been a part of our church for 10 years as well. Jacob Bell, my man in the middle. That's what's up. Starting defensive end for the Paul Public Charter School Pirates football team. He led the team in tackles as well as tackles for loss last season. He's a karate expert, having earned a black belt in karate. But underneath his athletic prowess is a kind, smart, and thoughtful young man who's grown up in this church over the last 8 years. He is starting his senior year in the fall and is pursuing multiple NIL deals with colleges throughout the country. I don't know. We're going to name that. We're just going to speak that. Perfect. I don't know. How close? Was it close? Good. Perfect. All right. I'll take it. Thank you all for being here. I want to open just with a few questions for you. Where, maybe just a kind of a softball one, where have you experienced community in the life of Christ City?
I can go first since I have the mic. I think Christ City Church has been our community for, more than a decade now. I came here when I was single, met my husband in this room when I joined the production team. So, a lot of my life has been lived in this community with, getting married, then having a kid right away, and then now I just had twins almost 9 months ago. So a lot of life has been lived, and a lot of it, it's been lived in this community and with folks really stepping in and doing life with us and showing up for us, and us being able to show up for other people. And I just can't imagine doing it without that support. And not just the friendships and social aspect, but the deep spiritual support of knowing that people are praying for us and being reminded of God's goodness and God's presence. And it's just so important for me to have that. And I'm so grateful for this church for being that for us.
For me, my community here is probably my guys in Teen City across the front row. I've known them ever since I joined, and they've just kind of been my community, my friends, and then every now and then the people in my parents' small group that I talk to every now and then, and it's my community here.
Similar to Melody, I've been here for a long time now, for 10 years. I also want to name sort of that other intersection that I have with Christ City being my community, as this is what I do for my job also. So really my community, sort of my whole community life as a whole, is really integrated with Christ City and has been for many years. I would say that one of the most significant things about community here at Christ City has been just the being actually in close relationship with people who are of very diverse life seasons. So I grew up in a tradition that was very, you kind of get siloed off, based on your age and life season. So it's sort of when you're a kid, you have your elementary school, middle school, youth group, high school, and then once I went to college and came back, you're with the singles, or you're with the young marrieds, and then when I had a kid or two, then you're with the parents, and that's who you're with. That's who your small group is. That's who your social outlets are. When we came to Christ City, and it's funny now to look back on Christ City 10 years ago. When we came, I have two kids. They were wee little 10 years ago. And when we came, we were one of 3 families, I feel who had kids in this community, which is very different now, which we love. We love that. We love to see it. And I remember feeling oh my gosh, we definitely have to just be friends with these people, because these are the only people that we're going to hang out with, because they were the only ones who have kids. And I think that recognizing just what, again, people from diverse life stages has brought to me has been one of the greatest blessings and surprises, I think, of community, and I still feel that way. Not just kind of being siphoned off to these are my people in the exact same life stage. That's helpful and a blessing also. And folks who are younger, folks who are older have just really blessed us, blessed me.
Tell me, I want to ask kind of a follow-up question. I'm grateful that that Christ City has been a place of community, but I want you to tell me a story. Jay, I'll start with you. Tell a story about a time where either you experienced that in a really specific way, or that you were able to be community for someone else in a particular way.
I think two things immediately came to mind, and I think they kind of hit these points when we talk about community, which I assume that we'll get to, but sort of a healthy community being a place of safety for someone and a place of challenge. I definitely have experienced both of those things, and I feel like I have a story of both of those. On the safety piece, or like the care piece, knowing that that your community takes care of you, I actually am thinking of a time when there was a member of our church went into labor early, like almost 2 months or something early, very early, and had nothing. They had not had their baby shower yet. They hadn't received things. They were kind of went into this emergency situation, labor. And I remember at the time we were all sort of like, oh my gosh, this is a huge emergency, and they have nothing. They're not ready for anything. They don't have a car seat. They don't have diapers, nothing. And I just remember this so vividly. I got in a car with a friend and a former Christ City, or Melissa, and we got in the car, we drove to Target, and we just bought a bunch of baby stuff, and then we made our way into this person's apartment. I don't even remember how we got a key. Maybe we broke in, I don't know. But we got in, and we just cleaned up what we could, and left this big haul of baby stuff on their table that people had been emailing and texting me. How can I get you money? Can I get anything? Is it better for me to just send you cash? I want to contribute to this. And we stood, at the end, we were getting ready to walk out the door, and we just both stood there and we went, this is holy and this is so significant. And just what a privilege to be able to be in someone's life like that. It moves me now just to think about how significant that was for me to just go to Target. But just know that this is what it means sometimes to be in community. So I think that's the first thing that I'll say. And then the second one, the challenge piece. Earlier on parenting is hard. I feel like we have established this over multiple weeks. Parenting is hard, and I have received so much care in my parenting journey from all of you. My kids have received so much care. I have also received challenge in this community. I remember it was probably 9 or 10 years ago. I had two friends from Christ City sit me down and say, hey, we just want to let you know something that we noticed about. There's a pattern that's in your parenting. The way that we're around you enough that we sort of see that this is a thing that I don't think that you realize, and we think it's sort of affecting your kid this way. And it felt horrible because I was like, oh my gosh, you're totally right. And I was able to receive it because it was given to me in love and care. And it was something that I obviously didn't see. And so it's just only made me a better parent, a better person.
Yeah, that's great.
Thinking about it, not a particular story comes to mind, but I guess being someone that my friends in the church can talk to, and just being there as someone for them to talk to, and just talk to about their faith and things that they're going through and other things like that. And also me being able to talk to them about other things going on in my life, faith, and stuff like that.
Again, I'm a mom, so I apologize for all the parenting stories, but that's my life experience. When I think about this church and specific stories of people showing up for us, so we got married and then very quickly got pregnant, did not plan to have a baby so soon after we got married, so there was a lot of kind of disruption of our lives and our plans, and our people really showed up for us. And I think about all the meals that were delivered when we had Eliana. So many meals, people showing up. We got this idea from the Watsons, but we did a sign-up sheet in Google, a Google spreadsheet where people would sign up to babysit for us so that we could be in a small group. And, just folks showing up every week to watch our kid so we could be involved. And then David and I were leading the production team. And so anybody who served at church over the last 8 years has probably helped find Eliana, make sure she's not climbing the bleachers, or, literally just now, Kate Denson ran out into the hallway after my child. So, honestly, Eliana's being raised by this group of people, and we need that. We don't have family nearby, and so this is our family. And now we're twin parents, so we still need all the help, and it's just a huge blessing to know that people are walking with us in whatever stage of life we're in, and then we get to sign up for other people to bring meals and watch their kids and stuff as we have capacity.
Yeah. I remember this a couple of years back, Jake. I don't know if you will certainly remember this. Christ City helped resettle a refugee family from Afghanistan, and watching the community come around, sort of at the initial flurry, was just a work of the Lord. And really, in real time, the miracle of the fishes and loaves, where they didn't have anything. At one point they were like sleeping on my couch. Like I walked in, there's grandma just passed out. I was like, oh, what do you know? And then immediately there was a house. And then a few weeks later, and then, there's kind of a flurry of activity because there's an interest and then there's hope. And I remember going back by a couple of weeks later, and Jake's mowing the grass. Like, bro, what are you doing? He's like, I'm mowing the grass. I come by every week, I'm mowing the grass. And that for me was a sign of leadership and community, of caring for somebody in a way that maybe they didn't even know, but I noticed. And it was a sign for me of that's what community is about. That's what it is. Let me ask you this. It's great. Christ City is amazing. We're all here. We believe you and believe in you. But where have you experienced community outside of the church?
You mean outside of this church or outside of church in general?
Outside of church in general, yeah.
I'm very grateful. I've had some really great coworkers in different situations where I've gotten really close to coworkers. Even with having our twins, I had a couple coworkers bring us food, which kind of surprised me. But yeah, I think I've definitely seen that at work. I had when I first moved to the area, I lived in a group house in Northern Virginia. There were 5 of us, and I think that was also a really wonderful time of community where we were all Christians, but we had very different backgrounds and we're in different types of churches. And so that was a challenge. It's always challenging to live with roommates. I miss it. I loved it. But I think the faith piece of it was challenging, and that we did have kind of different theologies and contexts that we were wrestling with. And it helped me grow a lot more in my faith and just learning what I really believed and how to kind of discuss that with people, and also just opening my eyes to the diversity within the church and faith. So I would say those are 2 specific examples I can think of.
Yeah.
For me, community outside of church would be the various sports teams I've joined. One, Jackson Reed football team, the Jackson Reed track team, the Paul football team. There's a lot. But yeah, building relationships in those different sports teams, because I'm homeschooled, so that's kind of my way to make friends is through sports a lot of the time, or through other friends. But that's kind of my, I'd say, main where I find community outside of the church is through the sports teams I've joined.
Maybe this will be sort of a. It counts. This answer will count. You can tell me if it counts, or stop me if it doesn't count.
You got the mic. Just
yeah, I can just
preach, preacher.
I think one of the spots where I've recognized I'm experiencing community now in just a really kind of unexpected, different way is actually through old friends. like friends that I had in even like high school and college. Some of those would intersect with the church, certainly, but I think just thinking about what community is for, how a huge part of community is who we allow to shape us, like who we allow to speak into our lives. And I think that kind of keeping up and cultivating some older relationships I've had with people who've known me in many seasons at this point. I'm very different now than I was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I very much recognize the role of that kind of community, I think, in my life outside of this body.
Yeah. When you think about the experiences that you've had, the positive experiences or the healthy experiences you've had in community, both in faith communities and then outside of a congregational setting, what would you say are like the top 2 or 3 marks of healthy community experiences that you've had inside the church and outside? You don't have to go in order. You can move it around, but you've got a pattern.
Okay, I can start with the mic. I would say I think two marks of healthy community, I think, would be the way that need is expressed and the way that vulnerability is expressed. I think need and vulnerability. I heard this really great quote by Dr. Brian Bantam. He's a theologian, he's a practitioner out in Washington State, and I was listening to a podcast once about his take on community, and he said community is a place where you say I'm not going to be who I am without you, and that's both a fact, like whoever's in my life will actually influence me because they will be the people that I go to when I have a need, and it's a commitment, I think, to one another. To say, I will not be who I'm going to be without you. Like, I refuse to move forward without you and allow you to have influence in my life. But I think it's how do we care for needs? Like, what does that community look like? That we actually admit that we need each other, acknowledge that we need each other. And then kind of with that is this particular level of vulnerability. You have to be vulnerable to say, I have a need and I can't do this on my own. American individualism. I can't do this on my own. I actually need someone else, and I'm going to be vulnerable to say that out loud and take the risk that maybe it won't get met, but I'm trusting that it will in my community.
Yeah.
For me, some marks for a healthy faith community would be kind of just, I know I've said this a lot, but like being someone that people can talk to, like I said, faith, life, whatever. Just like being able to talk about what God's doing in their life, what they need to improve on, so I can be there to help them. And yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I think I kind of am building on what both of you said. I would say vulnerability is huge. Knowing how to ask for help, which is something we've definitely had to learn a lot, and I think I still struggle with sometimes, of just thinking I can do it myself. But there is so much value in being vulnerable, asking for help, and then also being vulnerable in sharing what's really going on and not just showing up and acting like everything's okay. I think, to really have good community with others, you have to bring your full self and you have to open up and share what's really going on. And then on the other side of that, we need to be a community where we invite people to bring their full selves and don't try to, over spiritualize things or just say, oh, everything's gonna be okay, like you're fine, or God, I'll pray about it and that's it. I think I'm really trying to learn how to sit with people wherever they are, and if you don't have easy answers or there's no clear solution, it's so important to be a community of faith where we are just with people in whatever they're going through, and whatever joys and burdens and the good and the bad, that we're really showing up for people, and that's what I hope our faith community is able to do.
It's helpful to hear kind of the just reflecting on the things that you've said about the marks of how the community, of expressing need, vulnerability. Jake, I love what you've said about just being available, like making yourself available to be able to listen and to hear and to be present. This is a question that I didn't send to you. So, folks in the community, I suspect even those of us that are standing here have been hurt in community, or we have expressed vulnerability or a need, or we have been available, and that's not been cared for, or stewarded well, or taken advantage of. What would you say to those friends that are in the room that I said, I hear what you're saying, I long for that, and that very thing hurt me? How would you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard question, obviously. I mean, I don't want to have a pat answer, but I feel like we are all human and we fail, and I know I fail, and there are plenty of times I've dropped the ball in relationships. It's hard to be in a relationship with people. There's all kinds of reasons why conflict comes up, or, people have limited capacity. So I guess just grace. I mean, that's what grace is for. Grace from God, grace with each other. But also I think it is important when we know that we've messed up to apologize, to ask for forgiveness. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a hard question.
Give me some wisdom, Jake. What's up?
Yeah, kind of what Melody said. Grace is it's a tough one.
That's all right.
This is a tough one, and I think I want to be careful to answer and not come off as dismissive of the hurt that I myself have experienced in community, and that I know that many of you carry from past communities and even from this community. So I just want to just say that. I think this is something that I've heard you say. Community is where we get hurt. Certainly, we're going to get hurt in community. That's like a guarantee. So community is where you get hurt, but community is also where you heal. The place where you are hurt is the place where you heal. And I'm not sure if you can heal from the wounds that you've had in a community by yourself. I think you have to do that in another community. I would also say, particularly for those of you who are bringing that kind of, just that kind of weight with you, even into this community, the Christ City community specifically, this isn't just like a set place where it's like, hey, this is what this community looks like. This is exactly what it means to be in this community. And you can either like shape up and like get yourself to this particular thing, or you can get out or don't bother to come. That's not what this is. I think that every person that commits to being a part of community shapes the community. And I think the wisdom, particularly from folks who have been in communities that have been harmful, toxic, and hurtful, bring that with them. You bring that hurt, and then I've seen people so beautifully steward that experience into this community to say, I shaped this community too. I'm here, and I'm not going to let this place be a place like that, and call out when we tend towards that, or when there's a pattern, or again, like when they're like, hey, I see this is a thing that I recognize, I don't like it, this isn't who we want to be. So I think that, yeah, I don't know how you heal kind of without coming back to some kind of community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other thing I was kind of wrestling with and thinking about community and what was worth, what I might want to talk about, like what's the difference between a faith community and like this faith community and just like friend groups? And I think it really is that idea that there are going to be people in your community who you wouldn't necessarily gravitate toward or have chosen if you are just thinking about who you want to hang out with. I think last week the pastor said something like, true community, it's only true community if there's people you don't want there or you wouldn't have wanted there, or something like that. And the idea is not that, you're forced to be with I guess it is kind of, you're forced to be with people who are different from you and who maybe are harder for you to connect with, or whatever the thing is. There are people in this community, and there's this connection we have because of our faith and because we're here trying to live out our faith together, that is just so important and forces me to think bigger and get out of my own feeling that I'm always right or that I know the answers to things. And it definitely makes me grow and challenges my faith in a good way. So I think in that, though, relationships are hard and you do end up hurting each other. So I think there's, that's just part of doing life together, is working through those things. And it's something I want to do better at.
Yeah. That's good. That's helpful. I appreciate that. I remember a friend that was part of Christ City, and they had been wounded. They showed up, and they were like, I'm here. I'm trying to heal, and kind of alerting me, like, just so you know, like, it's sort of the last church straw for me, coming to this church, and there would have been seasons in my life where I'd been like, I really need to make sure that they are not hurt anymore, and that's true. And at some point, there was a better part of wisdom in the conversation where I said, listen, I just need for you to know I'm going to let you down. I don't want to. I love you. I deeply care. I want this to be a place of healing, but also acknowledging my own limitations as one who is in community with you. And also to say, and to pick up on words that all of you have said, like, I want to be gracious and humble in it, and need for you to give that to me as well, and for us to give that to one another, not for sloppiness, to not take care of relationships and with one another, but to acknowledge, like, we all show up with wounds and marks and hobbles and whatnot. But I think it's that tenderness with each other, the vulnerability to be able to say, this is what I need, strikes me as the right mark to move towards healthy community, as opposed to showing up and saying, we've all got it together, none of us have ever been hurt or hurt anybody, we're all perfect, and we should just show up in that way. That's the spot where we really, really, I think, can do damage to community and to ourselves. I receive that word. I want to ask you this, maybe as a practical, to kind of get down to a bit of brass tacks. I don't think I've ever used that phrase. I don't even know what that means, brass tacks. It's good. That's right. I'm going to own that. So we just get out of brass tacks. Who knows? I'll Google that later. What, or some of you can come and tell me, yeah, bro, how do you not know what brass tacks are? I don't know. What are, sometimes these panelists just get off the rails. What are some of the first steps? And I'm not looking for a single thing. I'm actually looking for a couple, 2 or 3. What are some of the first steps that we can take to be in community, and then also the other side of that, to be community for others? A couple of next steps.
I think I'm going to tout small groups as super important, as a way to connect with people on a deeper level. I've been in a lot of small groups over the years at Christ City, and just the relationships you can form are so valuable. And even if you don't connect with each other necessarily like socially outside of small group, even just knowing what's going on in each other's lives and hearing how God is working is so important, and knowing that people are praying for each other. So I would say, if you're not involved in a small group, or if you're somewhat involved in a small group, I think it's really important to find one you can really plug into. I also would just say simple things like checking in on your people is so valuable. I've had to figure out what community looks like for me in different life seasons and with different levels of capacity. And I try not to feel guilty about the fact that I can't show up for people like I used to be able to. So now a lot of times it's, if someone's on my mind, sending them a text message and praying for them, and then texting them to let them know that I'm thinking about them. Or if I know someone's going through something, just checking in and seeing how they're doing, I think is super valuable. And, it's something I can do anytime I'm sitting there with my phone. So how we can get plugged in, okay. So getting involved. I've also had seasons in my life where I felt like where I was missing community, and later found out that, or I was missing community and kind of feeling sorry for myself and wishing people would reach out to me. And then later found out that there were other people who felt the same way, and we could have all been in it together. So I also try to think about when I have those times where I'm kind of feeling less like I want to have to put in the effort, or like, why isn't anyone inviting me to things? It's a reminder that it's on me, and there could be other people who are feeling the same way, and to kind of look around and think about who else might be feeling disconnected and how we can connect with each other.
That's good.
Yeah. And then there's, people send meal trains. I try to bring food to people, and that's something I enjoy doing. So feeding people, it's always inconvenient. It's never convenient to make somebody food and deliver it to them during rush hour or whatever it might be. So it is a sacrifice, but it's something that I decided was such a blessing to us, has been a blessing to us. And so I try to do that for other people. But I think we all have different giftings, and you have to figure out what it looks like for you. And if hospitality isn't your thing, there's plenty of other ways to show up for people. So it also can look very different.
Yeah.
I think for me, inviting people into your community would just be reaching out, talking to people. That's kind of how I met my guys in the front, and then Julian in the back. When I first joined, we just talked to them, and they've kind of became my friends ever since I joined. I think it's been 9 years now. Yeah, something like that. But I think just reaching out, and then being community for someone else, that would, I guess, reaching out, but also being invited in by them, and so you can be that community for them.
Yeah, I certainly would echo what both of you have said. I would also plug small groups. I would really plug all the things that are happening in May. Y'all, there's a lot. Okay, so just christcitydc.org/upcoming. You can see it all. Great opportunities, like lots of different kinds of spaces to kind of be able to step into and engage with something with someone else. So there's my super practical one. Come to the thing in May. That's a great first step. I think I went a little bit more internal with sort of what is a next first step, whichever you would want to say. I think the first thing I would say is just embrace the awkwardness. I think that you're gonna feel weird, and that doesn't end even after you've known somebody for 10 years. Sometimes you get in a situation and you're just kind of like, we've never been in this situation before. This is kind of weird. It is awkward to meet new people. It can be awkward to be like, I'd like to share my life with someone. Do you want to hear about my life? I don't know. I want to hear about your life, but I don't want to be weird about it. I think that there's just a certain amount of awkwardness to just accept and embrace and lean into. We're leaning into the awkwardness, Christ City. Let's just lean in this May.
That's good.
I also think the second thing that I'll say, and I don't want to over-spiritualize this, but I'll speak from my own experience. I really think that asking the Spirit to just kind of show you where to be open to community, there are opportunities and pockets that are prepared for you. I just really believe that. And I think recently my family just kind of went through this season of discernment where we're having to make this kind of big decision, and nothing was in my control. I couldn't control anything, and I kind of came to this realization, and I think was led by the Spirit to say, hey, I recognize that you don't have control over everything, but it is well within your holy agency to choose who you walk through this with. And then there were people that came to mind of I should reach out to this person and ask them humbly to steward their experience and help me walk through this decision. And that to me was building community. I feel like the door was being opened to me for, I need some help. I need help. So I think the last thing I'll say is ask for help. If you've just got something, be generous with your vulnerability, be generous with your own need. I need help. It can be something very simple as I need somebody to come mow my lawn. Jake, can you help me? You know, like, I need some help.
Perfect.
There's something that I need. I need prayer. I literally just need a dinner with someone to not talk about my day and just sit and eat with someone else. Like, there are multiple things, but just embracing the awkwardness, recognizing where the Spirit might be already kind of like preparing a space for you, and being honest about what you need and asking for it.
Yeah, that's good. You can't control any given circumstance, but you can control who you walk through that circumstance with. That's a powerful word. Thank you. If we can just say thank you to them. You all have shared with us the role of community as a place of safety, but also challenge. Community as the geography in which we are present in the lives of other people and listening to them, where we have shared experiences. The challenge that you've extended to us to be both invitational and be invited into, and the willingness to step into awkward may is the invitation. When she was speaking about poetry, poet Mary Oliver said we should pay attention, we should be in awe, and we should tell someone. That strikes me as three movements that are really helpful in community. To pay attention to those that are around us that may be experiencing similar experiences of isolation or the need for vulnerability, but then to also be in awe of each other, of the ways that we're all carrying courage and vulnerability and need and surplus, to be in awe of that. And then I think Jake, I'm thinking of what you said about being invitational and being invited into, and then to tell somebody you can be a part of this, or tell somebody I want to be a part of that. That as we think about community, let us pay attention and be in awe of each other, and then to tell somebody. So thank you, friends. If we can give them a hand one more time.